Most people will work for 40 years of their life and end up with almost nothing to show for it. Not because they did not earn enough, not because they were lazy, but because nobody told them about one single concept that could have changed everything. And the insane part, it takes about 15 minutes to understand. Right now, in 2026, U.S. adults correctly answer only 49% of basic financial literacy questions. That's basically a coin flip. Half the country gets it right, half doesn't. And the question that almost everyone gets wrong, the one that costs people the most money across their lifetime, is about this one concept, compounding. Today, I'm going to break it down for you, show you the real numbers behind it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the people who get this right end up rich, and the people who ignore it are still wondering why they're stuck. So leave a like, and let me start with a number that should scare you a little bit. 36% of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for retirement. Not $10,000 a year, $10,000 total. And only 13% say they are actually ahead of their retirement goals. In 2025 alone, poor financial literacy cost Americans more than $246 billion. That's not a typo. $246 billion gone because people didn't understand how money works. And here's what makes this really painful. It's not that people don't earn money. The median U.S. household income in 2023 was $78,538. People are earning, but total U.S. household debt hit $18.8 trillion at the end of 2025. So people are earning and still falling behind. How is that possible? The answer almost always comes back to the same thing. People understand how to make money. They do not understand how money grows. And there's a massive difference between those two things. That difference has a name. It's called compounding. So what is compounding exactly? Let's keep it simple. You put $1,000 in an account that earns 10% a year. After year one, you have $2,100. Now, here's the part most people gloss over. In year two, you don't earn 10% on your original $1,000. You earn 10% on $1,100. So now you have $1,210. Then in year three, 10% on $1,210, you get $1,331. And so on, the interest starts earning its own interest. Your money makes money, and then that new money makes even more money. Sounds simple, right? Almost too simple to matter. But stick with me because when you stretch this out over time, the numbers become almost impossible to believe. Let's take a real example. Say you're 25 years old. You invest $10,000 in a basic S&P 500 index fund. Historically, the S&P 500 has delivered an average annual return of around 10.2% over the past 30 years, according to J.P. Morgan's 2025 data. So let's use 10%. At age 35, your $10,000 has grown to about $25,937. Fine. Decent. At age 45, it's $67,175. At age 55, it's $174,494. At age 65, it's $452,593. You turned $10,000 into $452,000. You didn't add a single dollar after that first investment, you just waited. Now, here's the question that makes most people stop and stare. What happens if you wait just 10 years before you start? You invest the same $10,000 at age 35 instead of 25. By age 65, you'd have about $174,494. That's it. A 10-year delay cost you $278,000. That's the price of waiting. That's the cost of not understanding this. But it gets even more interesting when you add regular contributions. A 25-year-old who invests just $5,000 a year for 10 years, a total of $50,000 put in, then stops completely, will likely end up with more money at retirement than someone who starts at 35, invests $5,000 a year for 30 years, putting in a total of $150,000, and keeps going until 65. The person who put in 3 times as much money ends up with less because they started 10 years late. Let that sink in for a second. Starting 10 years earlier, investing 1/3 of the money, and coming out ahead. That is compounding. That is why the timing of when you start is not just important, It's everything. Now, let's talk about the snowball on a hill. Warren Buffett once described compounding using the image of a snowball rolling down a hill. He said the trick is to have a very long hill, which means either starting very young or living to be very old. And honestly, that's the best explanation I've ever heard of it. Buffett is worth around $150 billion. And here's the part that trips people up when they hear it for the first time. 98% of that $150 billion came after he turned 65. At 65, Buffett was worth about $3 billion. That's already an insane amount of money. But 98% of his current net worth came in the years after that, because by then his snowball was enormous and the hill was still going. He didn't suddenly get smarter at 65. He didn't discover a secret strategy. The machine was already running. Compounding was already doing the work. He just didn't stop it. And Buffett started investing at age 10. By age 30, he had $1 million. By age 52, $376 million. By age 66, $17 billion. By age 83, $58.5 billion. The numbers don't grow in a straight line. They curve. And the curve gets steeper and steeper the longer you go. That's the visual you need to keep in your head when you think about this. Now, here's where this gets uncomfortable because compounding doesn't only work in your favor, it works against you too. And for most people, it's working against them right now. The average credit card APR in the United States as of late 2025 is around 21.5%. Some new card offers are averaging 23.7%. Think about what that means. Every dollar you owe on a credit card is compounding against you at 21% or more per year. Let's say you carry $5,000 in credit card debt and you only pay the minimum each month. Most minimum payments are around 1 to 2% of the balance. At 21.5% interest, you'd be paying off that $5,000 for over 15 years. And in total, you'd pay back somewhere around $12,000 to $14,000. You borrowed $5,000 and paid back nearly 3 times that. The same force that builds wealth for patient investors is destroying the finances of people who carry high-interest debt. And right now, total U.S. credit card balances are sitting at $1.28 trillion. That is compounding working against a nation. So before anyone talks about investing, the first conversation has to be this. If you're paying 21% interest on debt while trying to earn 10% on investments, you are losing. The math doesn't care about your intentions. Now, I want to discuss about the frequency factor. How often compounding happens matters. One thing most people miss is that it's not just the rate of return that matters. It's how often the compounding happens. There's daily compounding, monthly compounding, and annual compounding. And the difference is real money. If you put $10,000 in an account paying 5% annually, compounded once a year, you have $10,500 after year 1. But if it compounds daily, you'd have $10,512.67 salas. That's not a huge difference in 1 year, but over 30 years, daily compounding on that same $10,000 at 5% gives you $44,812. Annual compounding gives you $43,219. The more frequently interest compounds, the faster your money grows. This is why high-yield savings accounts, which as of April 2026 are offering up to 5% APY at some institutions, are significantly better than the national average savings account rate of just 0.39% APY. That's not a small gap. That's nearly 13 times the return. And on $10,000 held for 10 years, the difference between 0.39% and 5% compounded daily is roughly $6,200 in extra money just sitting in your account doing nothing. The vehicle you choose matters. The account type matters. The frequency of compounding matters. There's one more layer here that most people ignore, and it's critical. Inflation compounds, too. As of early 2026, U.S. CPI inflation has been running between 3% and 3.5%. The Fed's target is 2%, but we're still above it. What that means is that money sitting in a regular savings account, earning 0.39% per year, is actually losing purchasing power every single month. In real terms, your money is shrinking. If your savings earn less than inflation, you are getting poorer while your account balance technically goes up. That's the trick. The number looks bigger, but it buys less. This is why financial planners consistently push people toward investments that beat inflation over the long run. Not because stocks are guaranteed, but because doing nothing has a guaranteed cost. And that cost compounds against you every single year. Let me give you one more scenario that I think is the clearest way to show how powerful this concept really is. Two people, same age, both 22 when they start working. Alex starts putting $300 a month into a low-cost index fund from day one. They keep doing it for 43 years until they're 65. Total money put in $154,800. Veronica spends their 20s and 30s living a bit more freely. They start investing at 40. Same $300 a month, same index fund. They invest for 25 years until 65. Total money put in $90,000. Actually, less money invested. At 10% average annual return, Alex ends up with around $2.1 million. Veronica ends up with around $354,000. Same $300 a month. One starts at 22, one starts at 40. The result is almost 6 times more money. Not double, not triple, 6 times. That is the difference compounding makes when you give it time. Veronica didn't waste their money. They weren't irresponsible necessarily. They just didn't understand this, and it cost them almost $1.75 million. There's a phrase that gets used a lot in personal finance. Time in the market beats timing the market. This is exactly what it means. It's not about being smart enough to predict when stocks go up or down. It's about being in long enough for compounding to build the machine. But none of this matters if you don't do something with it. So, let's be direct. First, high-interest debt needs to go first. If you have credit card debt at 21%, that is your first investment. Paying that off gives you a guaranteed 21% return. Nothing in the market beats that without serious risk. Second, start as soon as possible, even if the amount feels embarrassing. $50 a month started today beats $500 a month started 5 years from now in many scenarios, depending on the return rate and time frame. Small amounts, compounding over long periods, become very large amounts. Third, keep fees as low as possible. A 1% annual fee on a long-term portfolio can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in loss, compounding over 30 to 40 years. This is not a small number. Low-cost index funds from providers like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab exist specifically to minimize this drag on your returns. Fourth, reinvest your dividends. When your investments pay out dividends, don't take the cash. Put it back in. Let it buy more shares. Let those shares pay more dividends. Let that cycle run. Fifth, don't interrupt the process. Selling when the market drops, moving money in and out, taking gaps of years. All of these break the compounding cycle at the worst possible times. The people who build real wealth from compounding are almost always the people who stay invested through bad years without flinching. One thing that often goes unnoticed, taxes can significantly slow down compounding. If you're not careful, a 4.35% taxable return drops to roughly 3.25% after federal taxes for most Americans. That difference compounded over 30 years is substantial. Tax-advantaged accounts, a 401k, a Roth, let your money compound without taxes taking a cut every year. That's not a minor detail. That's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars over a career. In 2026, Roth contribution limits sit at $7,000 a year for those under 50 and $8,000 for 50 and over. Using that space consistently is one of the most direct applications of compounding you can make. So, let's bring this all together. Compounding is not a trick. It's not a shortcut. It's the natural result of money-earning returns, and then those returns earning their own returns over and over for a very long time. It's not complicated. It's actually incredibly simple. But the results it produces look almost impossible until you see the math for yourself. The people who understand this start early, stay consistent, keep costs low, avoid high-interest debt, and let time do the heavy lifting. That's it. No secret strategy. No complicated product. Just this one concept applied patiently. And the people who don't understand it, they work just as hard, earn similar incomes, and arrive at retirement with a fraction of what they could have had. Not because of bad luck, but because of missing information. Right now, in 2026, only 49% of American adults can correctly answer basic financial literacy questions. This video is your chance to be in the other half. The best time to start was the day you got your first paycheck. The second best time is right now. If this changed how you think about money, subscribe and join my free community. There's a lot more where this came from. Just a reminder. I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and